Not only will Aaron Rodgers be featured in a new uniform in 2023, but he will also be eclipsing the age of 40 in December. Barring an injury, Rodgers should still be playing at that time. So I thought it would be interesting to take a look at every quarterback who started at 40 years of age and beyond. Playing well enough to still be a starter at that age is remarkably rare, and even for those who can still sling it at 40, at some point, you get sick of taking shots like this.
Breaking down, but it was Drayton Florence who told us when we met with him last night, you see the hit from behind, ball goes up in the air.
From 1966 to 2020, 721 quarterbacks have played in at least one NFL game, and just 14 of those have started in a game over the age of 40, with only 3 starting in the playoffs. So let's take a closer look at these old men playing under center. This first section I'd like to call the pre-1996 club. All the members here started 5 games or less over the age of 40. Considering the time period and how brutal the game was, it's truly remarkable that these men played that long. Charlie Connerly was the first quarterback to break the 40 barrier, starting in 4 games and winning 2 of them. Although statistically, he had a noticeable drop-off from his MVP season just 2 years prior. This pre-1996 club includes 3 Hall of Famers, the most successful by total wins and quarterback rating being Sonny Jurgensen. Now, Jurgensen was no stranger to individual success throughout his career, considering he was a 5-time Pro Bowler. Even at 40, his passer rating ranked 3rd in the NFL. But wildly enough, through his first 17 seasons, Jurgensen had never played in a playoff game. The teams he was on made the playoffs 3 times, but he was the backup in those circumstances and didn't have a single pass attempt. That was until 1974, where Jurgensen would throw his first playoff pass at the ripe old age of 40. And this came under tough circumstances. The Rams possessed the #1 ranked defense in the league. Mind you, in an era where rules heavily benefited defenses. After the main starter, Billy Kilmer, had struggled mightily through 3 quarters, the 40-year-old Jurgensen was tossed out there at the start of the 4th quarter to face that vicious juggernaut of a defensive front. In what began as a tied game, Jurgensen threw 3 interceptions on 12 passes, including a pick 6. They went on to lose, and he retired shortly thereafter.
First half, Moon stands in, fires long, he's got a man speeding towards the ball, and coming down is James McKnight.
In 1996, future Hall of Famer Warren Moon turned 40 and was coming off 8 straight Pro Bowl seasons. Unfortunately, that streak would end once Moon broke his collarbone, but the following year he bounced back, and with Seattle, he became the first quarterback over 40 to make the Pro Bowl. He wasn't quite the same player the following year though, and Moon became a backup in Kansas City until he retired at age 44. He was later named a Hall of Famer in both the CFL and the NFL. In 1998, Steve DeBerg, after having been retired for 4 years, came out of retirement at the age of 44 to be a backup in Atlanta in hopes of getting that coveted Super Bowl glory. On October 4th, 1998, he stepped in for starter Chris Chandler, becoming the 3rd oldest quarterback to play in an NFL game. Then a few weeks later, DeBerg started his one and only game that season. At one point, the Falcons, led by DeBerg, were down 28-3, and well, they lost, and DeBerg was replaced mid-game. In 2002, Doug Flutie turned 40 and was coming off a pretty rough season in his first year with the Chargers. He did not start a game in 2002, and it wouldn't be until 2003 at the age of 41 where Flutie filled in for 5 games in relief of Drew Brees. He had a few decent games in this stretch, going 2-3 as a starter. He would fill in for 1 more game the following season and helped win that one. And overall, Flutie would cap off his career in New England as the backup to a young Tom Brady. 2003. This was the year longtime NFL journeyman Vinny Testaverde turned 40. He was sort of the 80s and 90s version of Alex Smith. He went #1 overall and had some absolutely brutal seasons with the Bucs, but then went on to bounce back on other teams, making 2 Pro Bowls. When Testaverde turned 40, he was the backup to Chad Pennington in New York, and he filled in for 7 games in 2003. The following year, the Cowboys brought him in to be their backup. Then, after Quincy Carter failed a drug test, Testaverde started 15 games at the age of 41. He ended up leading the league in interceptions. Overall, he struggled when given the opportunities during this last period of his career, going 10-22 as a starter in his 40s with more interceptions than touchdowns. 2008, Brad Johnson was nearing the end of his surprisingly successful career. The former 9th-round pick had helped lead the Bucs to a Super Bowl victory back in 2002, but 6 years later at the age of 40, Johnson was a backup in Dallas to Tony Romo. Due to Romo getting injured, Johnson did end up starting 3 games in a row, and had a pretty tough go at it, featuring a 50.5 passer rating with 2 touchdowns to 5 interceptions. At least he did help beat his former team in a defensive battle. The Cowboys waived Johnson following the season, and this capped off his NFL career. 2009. This was the year Brett Favre turned 40 and had just come off his lone season with the Jets, where he played well before getting injured. In his first season with the Vikings, Favre became the second quarterback over the age of 40 to make the Pro Bowl, with an incredible season that saw him place 4th in the MVP race. This led him to becoming the first of these 40-year-old quarterbacks to not only start in a playoff game, but win one. Of course, Favre's most infamous moment in that playoff run overshadows all that.
To pass, he pumps. Now he fires over the middle, intercepted. I can't believe what I'm seeing right now. It was intercepted by Tracy Porter. Why do you even ponder passing? I mean, you can take a knee and try a 56-yard field goal. This is not Detroit, man. This is the Super Bowl.
The following season began to show his age. Favre saw a huge regression statistically, which just goes to show how quickly age can catch up to a player. And as the Vikings missed the playoffs, Favre retired for the final time. Throughout the 2000s, Matt Hasselbeck had chalked up an amazing career considering he was a 6th-round pick. He made 3 Pro Bowls in Seattle, but in 2015, at age 40, Hasselbeck had been a backup to Andrew Luck for 3 seasons. Unfortunately, Luck went down with injuries on separate occasions, and Hasselbeck started 8 games in his place. At first, he was balling out. Then age and injuries caught up with him, and he was unable to finish the regular season. Overall, Hasselbeck's final year saw him finish with a 5-3 record, and pretty solid stats considering his age. 2017. How much longer does Tom Brady have left? This was a question that many sports shows debated at the time. As he was about to turn 40, many didn't think that he had much left in the tank, and almost nobody could have imagined how the next 5 years would unfold. Not only did he make his 9th straight Pro Bowl at age 40, but he also won League MVP for the 3rd time in his career. The following year, he made another Pro Bowl and won his 6th Super Bowl. 2 years later, with a new team, won his 7th, then led the league in passing yards, making another Pro Bowl the year after that. Finally, in 2022, his 6th season over the age of 40, Brady led the league in completions and attempts, before finally calling it a career. Here's a chart to give more perspective on just how insane this dude was in his 40s. When it comes to games played and games won, Brady is mountains ahead of the competition. His 68 wins is more than 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th place combined. That's absolutely absurd. Now, when it comes to passer rating, there's only one guy who surpasses Brady in their 40s. And it's the only dude we haven't talked about yet, Drew Brees. Even though it was apparent that Brees didn't have much of an arm left at 40, he was still as decisive and accurate as ever. In 2019, at the age of 40, Brees went on to make his 4th consecutive Pro Bowl, while leading the league in completion percentage. In 2020, in the same category, he was just barely beaten out by Aaron Rodgers. But overall, it was another solid season. Although these 2 years over 40 both saw significant injuries that caused him to miss 10 games in that span. He ultimately did get a win in the postseason, but the final game of Brees' career was a loss to Tom Brady in the divisional round. So in wrapping up this video, I'm going to throw out a couple important stats to remember. There have been 14 quarterbacks in NFL history to start at the age of 40 and above and win a single game. That number drops to 7 at age 41, 4 at 42, 3 at 43, 2 at 44, and 1 at 45. Of the original 14, only 6 started for at least half a single season. 4 produced a record above 500. 3 managed to make at least 1 Pro Bowl over 40. Also, 3 started in a playoff game, all of which won at least 1. and only Tom Brady managed to win multiple playoff games. And obviously, he's the only one to play and win not only one, but 2 Super Bowls. So the big reason I even made this video was to shed light on the fact that, like I said in the intro, Aaron Rodgers turns 40 in December. He missed the playoffs last season and failed to win a single playoff game the year before that. Based on history, he's entering very rare territory, where quarterbacks struggle to find postseason success. But Aaron's also a very rare quarterback talent, so perhaps he can add his name to the list of the few who continue to find success in their 40s. What do you think's gonna happen? Let me know down below. Is he going to fall off a cliff with his new team and possibly retire in the next year or two? Or is he going to revitalize his career and lead the Jets to the promised land?
Tonight in Seattle, Rodgers dancing, has time, protection is good, going deep downfield. Tells Garrett Wilson, makes field goal Wilson.